We pour so much into our kids' futures, right? I mean, the extra classes, the specialized tutoring. It feels like we're constantly aiming for that golden ticket of success.
We absolutely are. And spending on education, tutoring, all that stuff has just skyrocketed in the last decade or so.
But here's a fascinating curveball. The things that really predict a child's later financial well-being, well, they aren't solely tied to getting straight A's. We're talking about some surprisingly different factors.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it, about what we prioritize. There's this huge societal focus on academic credentials, but the data, it paints a richer picture, maybe a more unexpected one.
Absolutely. And that's precisely why we're taking a deep dive today. We're looking into evidence-based child rearing by Professor Machiko Nakamuro from Keio University.
She's an expert in educational economics.
Right. Think of this as your direct line to understanding the actual evidence behind raising financially secure adults. This isn't just theory. It's based on massive global data sets and solid research on the long-term effects of what happens in early life.
Yeah, our goal here is to pull out those practical research-backed strategies, stuff from Professor Nakamuro's insights that you can actually use. We want to look beyond the common assumptions, focus on what the science indicates really has a lasting impact on a child's financial path.
Okay, so what's our roadmap for this deep dive? Professor Nakamuro's work points to three key areas that, well, pack a surprising punch.
Okay.
There's the influence of sports, the real benefits of getting leadership experience, and then cultivating those vital non-cognitive skills.
Got it. Sports, leadership, and those non-cognitive abilities.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with something that might just surprise you. The world of sports.
Sports. It's such a common worry for parents, isn't it? That all that time on the field or the court, it might take away from study time, potentially hurt academic progress. That's often the initial reaction.
It really is. But the evidence seems to suggest something quite different. Take this study from Purdue University in the U.S. They found that male students who actually played sports earned between 4.2% and, get this, 14.8% more income, 11 to 13 years after high school, compared to guys who didn't play sports.
Wow, 14.8%, that's a pretty significant jump.
Right, so it seems there's more going on than just, physical activity. Could it be something about the mindset sports develops?
That's a crucial point. It's definitely not just about pure athleticism. And what's really interesting is seeing these patterns show up again and again, even in studies using different methods.
Like what?
Well, for instance, there was this huge study in Norway. They looked at this massive group of brothers, over 140,000 of them.
Brothers. Okay, so comparing siblings. That controls for a lot, right? Genetics, family background.
Exactly, a really insightful way to isolate the variable. And what they found was that the brothers who participated in sports, they earned approximately 4% more each year than their siblings who didn't.
4% more, even within the same family.
Yeah, so that really strengthens the argument, It suggests a direct link between playing sports and earning more later, even when you account for shared background. It's probably not just a coincidence. There seems to be something about participating in sports that translates to financial benefits.
Okay, so we're seeing this link pop up in different places, different studies. But what's driving it? What's the actual reason for this income difference? The mechanism behind it?
Professor Nakamuro points to a couple of key things. First, it looks like having sports experience can actually give you an edge in the job market itself.
How so?
Well, those Norwegian researchers, they did this fascinating experiment. They actually sent out identical resumes to companies. The only difference, some resumes mentioned sports participation and others didn't.
Whoa, that's a really direct way to test it. Okay, and what happened?
The resumes that included sports experience, they were about 2 percentage points more likely to get called for a job interview.
2 percentage points.
Yeah.
Okay, not massive, but it's something.
It's definitely something. Now, we can't know exactly why hiring managers reacted that way without asking them directly, but it suggests that employers might see candidates with a sports background as having certain desirable traits.
Like discipline, teamwork maybe, stuff like that.
Could be. Which, leads us right into the second key reason, developing those valuable, transferable skills, those non-cognitive skills we mentioned.
Right, like perseverance, leadership, teamwork, responsibility, social skills, things you definitely learn in sports.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. You're working together, right? Towards a common goal. You have to learn to cooperate, deal with winning and losing. You face setbacks. You learn to bounce back. These are all like fundamental skills for almost any professional environment.
Yeah, navigating group dynamics,
Yeah.
handling pressure, driving for a shared outcome.
Yeah.
It's not just about being good at the sport itself. It's building these underlying character traits that are
Yeah.
valuable anywhere.
Totally.
Okay, but what about that initial worry we talked about, that sports might take away precious study time?
And here's where it gets even more interesting. Another surprising piece. German data suggests that kids who participated in sports between the ages of 3 and 10, they had, on average, a 1.9 higher deviation value. That's a standard score compared to kids who didn't.
Wow. So wait, running around on a field might actually be linked to doing better academically? That feels really counterintuitive for a lot of people.
It does.
Is it possible that physical activity helps with focus? Or maybe reduces stress?
Well, we don't know the exact cause and effect for sure, but the data certainly suggests sports doesn't necessarily hurt study time. It might even enhance learning somehow. It's plausible, right? That moderate exercise could help fight off that mental fatigue from studying for hours, maybe improve concentration.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, though. Professor Nakamuro highlights a very specific age range where these income-boosting benefits of sports really seem to take root.
That's right. The research points pretty strongly to participation between the ages of 3 and 10 being key for that future income boost.
3 to 10.
Yeah. Starting sports later, like in university, unfortunately, that doesn't seem to have the same kind of impact on later earnings. It really seems like those early experiences are crucial for developing those valuable underlying skills.
So it's those early formative years that really count when it comes to the financial payoff from sports.
Huh.
And it's not just about the money either, is it? There are other benefits.
Oh, definitely not just money. The research also links childhood sports participation with other good outcomes. Things like lower crime rates, increased self-confidence, even better school attendance. The positive effects seem to ripple outwards.
Okay, so the big takeaway here for anyone listening, thinking about their kid's future, encouraging sports between ages 3 and 10. It's a surprisingly powerful tool. Goes way beyond just physical health.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's pivot then. Our second key area, taking charge. The often underestimated value of leadership experience during school years.
Yeah, and this really builds on that idea of transferable skills we were just talking about. Professor Nakamuro's research suggests that actively getting involved in leadership roles at school can also have a pretty significant impact on future financial success.
What kind of evidence are we looking at for that?
Well, there was a large-scale longitudinal study from the University of California. They followed a huge group, 400,000 high school students over 9 to 13 years.
400,000 students. Wow, that's a ton of data.
It really is a substantial amount to draw conclusions from.
Okay, so what did this massive study find?
The key finding: students who held leadership positions in high school, team captain, club president, that sort of thing, they earned anywhere from 4% to an impressive 33% more income 11 years after graduation compared to peers without that experience.
Whoa, hold on. Up to 33% more. That's potentially life-changing.
It really is. Could it be that those early leadership roles just instill a different way of approaching challenges, opportunities?
So leading the debate club could actually translate to earning significantly more later. That's a really strong connection.
And it's not just about the income bump either. The study also found positive links between leadership experience and achieving better academic results, and also pursuing higher education.
Right, which makes sense. Those things obviously help in the job market too.
Exactly. It all kind of feeds into each other.
Okay, so why? Why does stepping up, taking on those roles, why does that translate into higher earning potential down the line? What are the mechanics there?
The why seems to boil down to developing really crucial skills. Leadership roles, they naturally push you to cultivate abilities like organizing groups effectively, getting comfortable with public speaking, honing your decision-making skills, all highly valued in professional settings.
Yeah, skills that are pretty fundamental for a lot of higher paying jobs, right?
Yeah.
Management, team leads, supervisors.
Precisely. Someone who's managed to lead a student organization, they've probably already got a basic understanding of how to motivate a team, how to direct people in a professional context. They've had practice navigating group dynamics, taking initiative.
Okay, but what about that common idea, that some people are just born leaders, it's just an inherent trait? What does Professor Nakamuro's research say about that? Nature versus nurture.
Yeah, that's a common thought. But based on her review of the research, Professor Nakamuro concludes leadership isn't just some innate talent you either have or don't. It's more like a skill set, something that can be developed, refined through actual experience.
Ah, so it leans more towards nurture.
It seems so. More experience equals better leadership skills.
So the more chances kids get to actually practice leading, the better they become at it. Like any other skill, really.
Exactly right. More practice, better skills. The book even gives this practical example from a university seminar. They set up a system where they rotated leaders every 6 months.
Oh, interesting. Why?
Specifically to make sure more students got that hands-on leadership experience, to help them develop skills in things like, building consensus in a group, communicating persuasively.
That's a really smart, proactive way to build those skills.
Yeah.
Okay. So the bottom line here, if you're thinking about your child's future financial success, actively encouraging them to seek out and, embrace leadership opportunities during their school years seems like a really strategic move.
Definitely.
Now let's move into our third key area. This is all about the skills that go beyond the traditional report card,
Yeah.
those crucial non-cognitive abilities.
Right. These are the skills that are harder to measure with tests or grades, but Professor Nakamuro argues they have a profound impact, not just on income, but on health, relationships, overall happiness.
Okay, define non-cognitive skills for us again. What are we talking about here?
We're talking about things like leadership, which we just covered,
Yeah.
resilience, empathy, self-discipline, responsibility, and that really important quality, grit.
And we've already touched on how sports and leadership can help build some of these, right? It all seems interconnected.
Absolutely. It's all reinforcing. Think of it like a whole spectrum of valuable personal attributes. Now, while there are many of these non-cognitive abilities, Professor Nakamuro's research really zooms in on 3 that seem particularly strongly linked to future income:
Okay, which 3 are those?
perseverance, self-control, and grit.
Perseverance, self-control, grit. Okay, let's break those down. Why these 3 specifically? How do they connect to making more money later?
Okay, let's start with perseverance. People who score high on perseverance, they tend to avoid negative habits. Things like consistently staying up too late, overindulging in food or drinks, smoking, stuff like that.
Right.
And this generally leads to healthier lifestyles, which is good in itself, but maybe surprisingly, it also correlates with higher savings rates over time.
That makes sense. Better health means lower costs, maybe more productivity, and avoiding impulsive stuff definitely helps financial stability.
Exactly. Then there's self-control. Strong self-control helps people avoid racking up unnecessary debt. It encourages more consistent saving habits. It also reduces the likelihood of getting involved in substance abuse or other risky behaviors, which can obviously have huge negative financial impacts.
Right. It's about having the discipline to make those smarter, forward-looking decisions, especially with money.
Precisely. It's about making those conscious choices that benefit you in the long run.
Okay, and the third one was grit. We hear that term a lot these days.
Yeah, grit. It's usually defined as that combination of perseverance and a real passion for long-term goals. It's about staying committed, even when things get tough, when you hit obstacles.
So sticking with things.
Sticking with things, exactly. And that's crucial, right? For sustained effort in your studies, in your career, even in maintaining stable relationships, all of which can indirectly support financial stability. It's that ability to just keep showing up, keep working towards something, even when it's hard.
That ability to keep going, yeah. Not give up easily.
Yeah.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly important, but the big question is, how do you actually foster these skills in kids? It's not like you could just teach grit from a textbook, right?
You've hit on a really key challenge there. Because these skills are often hard to measure directly, figuring out the absolute best ways to cultivate them is still an active area of research. However, Professor Nakamuro's work points us back to what we've already discussed: childhood participation in sports, active engagement in leadership roles. These activities are consistently linked to developing these crucial non-cognitive abilities. It's like they provide a natural training ground.
So getting kids into team sports, encouraging them to take on responsibility. It isn't just about those specific activities themselves. It's also about laying this really important foundation for these broader life skills that pay off financially later.
Precisely. The book also mentions providing kids with opportunities to engage with, like music and the arts, to stimulate their curiosity. That can also play a role in developing these important non-cognitive traits.
Interesting. And the impact of these skills. It's not always immediate, is it? And it sounds more like a long-term investment.
That's exactly right. Professor Nakamuro notes that the effects of strong non-cognitive skills often become most obvious in income differences, like between the ages of 40 and 60.
Wow, that late.
Yeah. Think of it like compound interest, right? These skills, they accumulate. They yield bigger and bigger returns over time. Those small acts of perseverance, of self-control early in life can lead to really substantial advantages decades later.
So the patience and discipline you learn and practice early on, they really do pay off in the long run, tangibly. Okay, we've talked a lot about what kids can do, what experiences help them. Now let's shift focus. What about the parents? What's their role in guiding all this growth?
This is huge in Professor Nakamura's research.
Right.
A central, really powerful conclusion is the significant impact of parental involvement. Just investing time and focused effort in raising children, especially during those formative years between 0 and 15, it's strongly associated with higher future income for the child.
So time and attention from parents literally translates to better financial outcomes later.
The evidence points that way. It's like a direct investment in their long-term financial well-being.
That makes intuitive sense, sure.
Yep.
But what's the actual evidence? What backs up this connection between parental involvement and, future earnings?
Well, there's a study using data from a UK time use survey. It found a really clear correlation. The more quality time parents spent with their kids between ages 0 and 15, the higher the children's measured IQ and the stronger their development of those key non-cognitive skills. Perseverance, self-control, grit.
Okay, so direct link. Parental time leads to stronger cognitive and non-cognitive skills, which we already know link to income.
Exactly. It suggests a direct pathway from parental time investment to cultivating these valuable traits.
And it sounds like the timing of this parental investment really matters too. Like the early years are extra important.
Absolutely. The positive impact of parental involvement seems to be most significant during younger childhood. Professor Nakamuro specifically calls out the period from birth to age 3 as a critical golden window, especially for language development.
Birth to 3 for language. Why is that so key?
Because strong language skills in those really early years, they laid this crucial foundation for cognitive development as the child grows and learns. It sets the stage.
So all those early conversations, reading together, just interacting with babies and toddlers, it's incredibly important for building that cognitive framework they'll need later.
Okay. What about as kids get older, teenagers?
The research suggests the direct impact of parental time gradually evolves. By the time kids reach, say, 11 to 15, and especially after 15, the focus shifts. It becomes more about supporting their independent learning rather than the same kind of direct guidance as when they were younger.
So the parent's role changes
Mm.
from direct involvement to more of a supportive mentor, encouraging independence, providing resources. Exactly. Around age 15, Professor Nakamuro suggests that using resources like tutoring or supplementary educational programs can be particularly effective. It's about giving the right kind of support for their developmental stage.
That's really insightful. Is there anything else about parental influence that the research highlights?
Yes, actually. There's a compelling study from Columbia University. They analyzed data from a massive 1.43 million siblings.
Wow. 1.43 million siblings. What did they find?
They found a consistent birth order effect. Basically, later-born children tend to have lower average educational attainment compared to their older siblings.
Huh. The birth order effect. Why would that be?
The researchers connect it back to that idea of parental time allocation. Firstborn children, they often get more focused parental attention, especially during those critical early years we just talked about.
More one-on-one time.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Time use surveys in the U.S. have even shown an average daily difference of like 20 to 25 minutes in direct time parents spend with firstborns compared to later-born siblings.
20 minutes a day doesn't sound like much, but
But it adds up, right? Over those crucial early formative years, that difference can accumulate significantly.
yeah, that seemingly small daily difference could actually have a cumulative effect on development and maybe eventually educational path.
Well,
Wow.
Precisely. Now, Professor Nakamuro is very aware of the challenges modern families face. Dual-income households, major time constraints. That's the reality for many parents.
That absolutely is. So what practical advice does the book offer for parents who might be feeling stretched thin, worried about dedicating enough focused attention?
Well, the encouraging news is that involving grandparents or other close family members in childcare can still have a really positive impact. on both cognitive and non-cognitive development.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, the key factor seems to be ensuring the child receives consistent, nurturing interactions and attention. It doesn't have to be the parent 100% of the time. Building a strong support network for childcare can be a really valuable strategy for busy parents.
So it's about prioritizing those meaningful interactions, maybe looking to extended family for backup when needed.
Okay. The main takeaway here seems to be investing time and effort in raising kids, especially in their first 15 years, is a huge factor in their future success. And seeking family support is a valid and beneficial strategy.
Well put.
Okay, let's shift gears again. Let's talk about the environments where our children learn their schools, their classrooms.
Right. And this is an area where Professor Nakamuro offers a really nuanced perspective. She kind of challenges that common parental drive, to get kids into the absolute highest ranked school possible, almost at any cost.
The top school at all costs
Yeah.
mentality. Yeah, it feels like the ultimate goal for so many parents wanting the best for their kids.
And look, that desire to provide the best, it's completely understandable. But Professor Nakamuro's research suggests this approach can actually backfire sometimes. If a child ends up feeling significantly outmatched, constantly struggling compared to their peers, it might not be the best thing. There's a balance to consider. Okay, tell us about the research behind that.
There was a study looking at elementary and middle schools in Florida. They focused specifically on the academically high-achieving students, say, the top 20% in their class.
The top kids. Okay.
They found that these high-performing students did benefit from being in classes with other equally high-achieving peers. It
Yeah.
seemed to push them, help them excel further.
Makes sense. Being around bright, motivated peers can be a powerful motivator for top students. But what about the other kids? The majority?
Right. Here's the really interesting bit. Students who are in the lower academic tiers, let's say the bottom 80%, they actually tended to perform worse academically when they were in classrooms with a really high concentration of those top performing students.
Really? Worse. Why would being in a class with high achievers hurt other students' performance?
Professor Nakamura suggests it can lead to feelings of inadequacy, a decline in confidence. If you're constantly surrounded by peers who are just significantly outperforming you, instead of feeling motivated, you might just feel discouraged, less likely to engage, like you're always falling behind.
It's like that big fish, small pond idea, but in reverse. Being a small fish in a very big pond might make you feel overwhelmed, less capable, even if you'd be fine in a different pond.
Exactly. It's a
Right.
good analogy. Think about how you might feel if you were constantly in really competitive social situations way out of your depth. It can kind of stifle your willingness to even try.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
So Professor Nakamura's practical advice here is that choosing an environment, whether it's a school, a club, even a workplace later, where you can realistically be in the, say, upper ranks of the second best option, that might actually be better for your long-term development and confidence than constantly struggling at the bottom of the absolute top choice.
So it's often better to thrive and build confidence in a slightly less prestigious environment than to just barely survive and feel inadequate in the most elite one.
That seems to be the idea. It's about finding the right fit for development.
Okay, what about kids or even adults who are already in that situation, struggling at the lower end of their chosen environment? What advice does the book offer them?
In those cases, the book suggests actively focusing on self-comparison. Measure your progress against your own past performance. Not constantly looking sideways at others. It's about recognizing and celebrating your own improvement wherever you started from.
That's really valuable advice. It is so easy, especially for students the same age, to just fall into that trap of constant peer comparison.
It really is. Which just reinforces this core message. Carefully choosing an environment that actually aligns with a child's current level, one that allows them to experience success and build confidence. That can often be a more beneficial path for their overall development in the long run.
So the key takeaway: being a top performer in a good fit environment can be more advantageous than struggling in a seemingly superior one. Okay, finally, let's turn to some really practical strategies. How can we nurture the potential of kids who might be, currently facing academic challenges?
Yeah, this is such an important area for parents who might be feeling concerned or maybe a bit discouraged. Professor Nakamuro outlines 3 key methods that research shows can be effective.
Okay, what are they?
1, setting clear and achievable goals. 2, establishing consistent routines and habits. And 3, actively engaging in collaborative learning with peers.
Goals, habits, teamwork. Okay, let's start with goal setting. It sounds basic, but like many of us know from, well, failed New Year's resolutions, setting goals and actually achieving them are often two very different things.
Oh, absolutely. It's tricky. But Professor Nakamuro emphasizes that setting achievable goals can definitely have a positive impact on study habits. There was research from a university in the Netherlands. They studied 1,500 university students, and it showed a clear positive link between goal setting and improvements in grades and course completion rates.
Okay, so goal setting works in principle. But where do people go wrong? What's the key to making it effective, especially for struggling learners?
The crucial thing, according to the research Professor Nakamuro cites, is shifting the focus. Don't just focus on the desired outcome. Focus more on the daily actions that will lead to that outcome.
Outcome versus actions. Can you give an example?
Sure. So instead of a goal like, I want to get an 80 on my next math test, that's an outcome, and you can't fully control it.
Right, the test could be super hard, or you could just have a bad day.
Exactly. Instead, the focus should be on behavioral goals, concrete actions like, I will study math for 30 minutes every day. That's something you can control.
Focusing on the process, not just the end result. Did that make a difference in that Netherlands study you mentioned?
It absolutely did. The study found that students who specifically set those behavioral goals, focused on their study habits, they actually showed significant grade improvements. But interestingly, the students who mostly focused on outcome goals, like getting a certain grade, they didn't experience the same positive impact.
Wow. That's a really powerful distinction. Why? Why is focusing on the daily actions so much more effective?
Because behavioral goals are largely within your own direct control. You decide whether you study for 30 minutes. Outcome goals, like test scores, are influenced by tons of factors outside your control. When you focus on actions you can consistently take, it builds this greater sense of empowerment, self-efficacy, which boosts motivation and makes success more likely.
That makes total sense. It's much more motivating when you feel like you're actually in the driver's seat. What if the overall goal just feels overwhelming, like pass this whole class seems impossible?
That's where breaking it down comes in. Professor Nakamuro suggests taking those huge, daunting goals and chopping them into smaller, more manageable steps. If studying for an hour feels like too much, start with just 15 minutes a day.
Just 15 minutes.
Yeah. Make the first step feel easy. Getting started is often the biggest hurdle. Breaking it down makes it less intimidating. And honestly, this strategy, focusing on small, consistent actions, it's not just for students, it's a really valuable technique for adults too, trying to build any new habit.
Good point.
So the key takeaway for goal setting, make them daily, make them action-oriented. That fosters improvement. Okay, second strategy, habit formation.
Right, turning studying into a regular habit. That sounds like a potential game changer for a struggling student. But how do you actually make that happen? How do you go from forcing yourself to do it to it feeling more automatic?
Professor Nakamuro explains that when you turn important but maybe less enjoyable tasks like studying into ingrained habits, it just takes less effort, less willpower to actually do them. Think about your own daily routines, like brushing your teeth.
Yeah, I don't really think about it. Just do it. Feels weird if I don't.
Exactly. That's the goal for studying. Make it feel similarly automatic. And Professor Nakamuro points to two key elements for making that happen. First, lower the initial barrier to entry, make it easy to start. And second, ensure consistent repetition.
Lower the barrier, repeat consistently. Okay, practical examples for studying.
Sure. Lowering the barrier. Instead of aiming for an hour right away, start small. Just 15 minutes, like we said. Make it feel easy to just begin. Repetition. You can also use small rewards right after studying, something you enjoy linked directly to doing the work.
Like a treat or some screen time, maybe.
Could be. But the most crucial part is that daily consistency. Even if it's just for a short time each day, doing it every day helps build that neural pathway, strengthens the habit. Think about like daily login bonuses in games.
Huh. Yeah, you're coming back every day.
Exactly. Same principle. Encourage that consistent engagement, even briefly. Over time, that repetition builds the habit. Eventually, the activity feels more natural, needs less effort, even without the immediate reward.
So small steps, maybe rewards initially, but most importantly, doing it every single day.
That seems to be the key. Studying a daily habit through those small, consistent steps and engagement, that can be truly transformative for a struggling learner. Okay, and the third strategy, collaborative learning, teamwork.
Studying with others, how is that necessarily better than just, buckling down on your own?
Well, Professor Nakamuro explains that studying with peers creates this powerful sense of accountability. It's driven by social influence, really. You're just less likely to procrastinate or get distracted when you know others are kind of relying on you, or when you're simply in a room where everyone else is focused and working.
Yeah, the peer pressure effect, but in a good way.
Kind of. A study from the University of California, looking at over 1,000 university students, actually showed that the amount of time students spend studying went up significantly when they worked together in teams.
Yeah, I can see that. It's definitely harder to slack off and scroll through your phone when your study partner's right next to you or, like, diligently working through problems.
Exactly. It's such a contrast to studying alone at home, right? Where distractions are everywhere and it's so easy to lose focus. Forming study teams just provides that extra layer of motivation.